close with my boss at a party and didn't notice my coworker videotaping me. Have you ever been in a situation where you were videotaped by a coworker at a party before? Well, I was. It's a scenario I want to erase from my memory. The aftermath of that has cost me my marriage, career, and all the things I have worked for over the years. I regret it and take accountability for everything. I wish I could turn back the hands of time to right all the wrongs and also erase that memory. But I guess it's not possible. My husband has cut all ties with me and sworn never to set his eyes on me again. He doesn't deserve it. The way I cheated on him is something that no man in his right senses would forgive his wife for. His revenge was brutal and he showed no mercy. I guessed I deserved every bit of it. I have learnt my lessons. My name is Linda and I am 25 years old. The name of my ex-husband is Leonard and he is 28 years old. My husband and I have been together for 6 years, but recently we went our separate ways. We both had a son together. His name is Emmy. He is 4 years old. I feel ashamed right now and can't even go out like I used to do because I did the unspeakable. To think that I have a 4-year-old kid that looks up to me and still disgraced myself is something I can't forgive myself for. Apparently, my husband, Ray, watched a video of me cheating on him with my boss at our annual get-together organized by my boss. I didn't know what I was thinking. I had so much to drink and eventually got lost with him and made out with him. Maybe I shouldn't have drank too much or even agreed to go to the party in the first place. I should have just declined, right? But then it was an armless get-together that people go to. It was organized for all the staff to marry after a long day at work. I think I over-enjoyed myself and got so carried away that I forgot that I was married. Did I drink too much that day? Yes, I did. In fact, more than anyone else in the hall. I didn't want my husband to know about my infidelity in the manner he did. I could have let him know about it eventually. Not on the phone. At least, not through a video. Leonard looked at me in utmost disgust and shook his head in disbelief when he saw the video. So, guys, my boss and I were very close to each other. We often hung out together outside work, but it was based on mutual friendship. We never had the intention of going extra with the friendship. Well, at least to my own end, it was like that. I didn't know what my boss's intentions were. My boss's name is Raymond. He is 29 years old. I have been working with my boss for 3 years now. Raymond is the CEO of the company I worked at. It is a shareholding company. There were several occasions where Raymond stole glances at me. He is the playboy type that likes having fun and never takes things seriously. After work, Raymond offered to take me out for dinner, and sometimes we had breakfast and lunch together. I wasn't expecting anything from the dates and the times we hung out together. We were both adults, and I set the boundaries between us. Raymond was also aware of my marital status, but he kept on leading me on. I don't blame him for that night because it was a temptation I should have resisted, but I gave in to it. I woke up one morning as usual, ready to go to work. I got up from bed and made breakfast for Emmy and my husband Ray. We had breakfast together and left the house. The school bus came and picked Emmy. He was at elementary school at that time. My husband also left for his workplace, and so I did. I got to work and found a note on my desk. At first, I didn't pay attention to it because we had a meeting that all the staff had to attend. And so I dropped my bag and went straight to the boardroom. The meeting lasted till noon, and all staff went back to their respective offices. I got to my office and saw the piece of note. At that time, I got curious to know the content of it, and also know who had sent it. I opened it and saw what was written down. After reading through it, I already knew who it was. Of course, it was from Raymond. He was asking if we could go see a movie together. Then I remembered why he kept looking at me during the meeting. I read it and quickly tore the piece of paper and threw it in the waste bin that was close to me. I didn't want to be seen going out with Raymond because I didn't want the other staff to make side comments, and so I was careful. I got up and went to meet Raymond and told him I wasn't sure if I would go out with him at that time because I didn't want my husband to suspect or misunderstood our friendship. And so I told Raymond I wasn't going. He was persistent and said he just wanted to hang out with me and nothing else. At that time, I didn't understand why he liked hanging with me. I tried making up excuses, but he was persistent and told me he would be waiting for me. Raymond sent me the address before we closed from work that day. I went home and thought about how to sneak out of the house. I didn't know what to tell Ray, my husband. Of course, I couldn't say my boss wanted to see a movie with me then. Leonard would think there was more to it than just hanging out. I got home and was uneasy. I cracked my head to see if I could come up with a better idea of what to say to him. Then the thought of calling Rita, one of my colleagues, came to my mind. Rita and I got to know ourselves through work. We started off as co-workers and eventually got close together. I called Rita and told her about it, and she offered to help me come up with a plan. The plan was for her to come over to my place and did like we wanted to go to a book club. I waited for Rita for a few hours before she showed up at my house. Our plan worked, and so I went out with Raymond. Rita was the only one that knew about it, and she promised not to let anyone know. I snuck out of the house and went to see a movie with my boss, Raymond. When I got there, Raymond complimented my dressing and reminded me how beautiful I was then. I felt a little bit awkward and at the same time loved all the praises he showered on me. The night went fine and we had a great time. The movie lasted for 2 hours. Raymond and I got outside and I told him I needed to leave immediately because it was already late at that time. But he insisted I stay a little longer and have ice cream, which we did. The night was pleasant and I felt happy. At that moment, I wished Leonard could have me treated like the way Raymond did. My husband and I were so busy with work that we hardly had time for each other. But we still made out time for our son. So guys, Raymond got us ice cream and we had it together. After a few minutes later, I told him I needed to go, and at that time, I made up my mind to leave even if he had insisted. Well, he didn't, but told me he would let me go if only I had kissed him. Of course, I refused bluntly and told him I wasn't going to do it. Raymond had an expression of shock and confusion on his face. I got hold of myself, and then I got into my car and drove off. I got home that night and met my husband and son already in bed. I quickly freshened up and went and joined Leonard on the bed. Honestly, guys, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I had mixed feelings about the night. I was happy that I had fun and at the same time thought about what Raymond said. At that time, I didn't want to have any type of relationship aside from work with Raymond, but he kept coming closer. After a few hours, I finally fell asleep and retired for the night. The next day, I woke up from bed and did my morning routine before going to work as usual. I couldn't get over the previous night. I kept thinking about it for some reason. I was so deep in my thoughts that I didn't notice when Leonard was talking to him. I got myself back when he tapped on my shoulder twice. I came back to myself and asked him what he was saying. Leonard looked at me and asked if everything was okay. At that point, I didn't know what and started stuttering. Eventually, I managed and told him that I was carried away with something and apologized. He shook his head and repeated what he was saying. Apparently, Leonard wanted to know how my book club went the previous night because he had fallen asleep when I arrived. I couldn't look at him before I responded because I never went to any book club. I lied. Leonard nodded and didn't suspect anything. He sat down and ate his breakfast, and after a few minutes, he left for work with our son, Emmy. The school bus broke down that day, and Leonard had to take him to school. As soon as they left, I got dressed and headed out to work. I was nervous and at the same time scared because I thought maybe my boss would be upset after turning him down the previous night. At that point, I planned on avoiding Raymond throughout that day. I got to my office and I saw a bunch of flowers waiting for me on my desk. I looked at the card and discovered it was from Raymond. My mind skipped a bit, but then, for a weird reason, it brightened my day. Not long after, I received a call from Raymond. He called to know if I had received the flowers he had sent. Apparently, he hadn't gotten to work at that time. He was caught up with something that he needed to stay back. I thanked him and told him that I liked. We talked for a while and he made me laugh throughout our conversation. I had to end the call because I was getting another call from my husband. I spoke to my husband not feeling guilty because I thought what was going on between me and Raymond was not that important, and there was no need for me to worry him over it. I got off the phone with my husband and did all the work that was on my table. The flowers were beautiful. I was very happy at that time because no one had given me flowers in such a long time. I also called Rita and told her about everything that had happened the previous night. She teased me about it and made funny jokes throughout our conversation. We talked for a few minutes before we were called for an emergency meeting that day. We got to the boardroom and everyone was seated to hear why the meeting was called. All the staff were present except the boss, Raymond. Everyone had started whispering why he summoned us. We waited for a while before he joined us. Raymond walked in looking all handsome. I watched him walking smartly till he sat down. He was very good looking and at the same time knew how to treat a woman with love. Before anyone would notice my absenteeism, I quickly recomposed myself. Apparently, Raymond called all his staff to have a nice hangout together. It was an annual get-together that is usually organized every year, and all staff were expected to be in attendance. It was more like an end-of-the-year party, but was usually celebrated 2 months before Christmas. All the staff were excited because they were going to have fun. I was also excited and looked forward to it. The get-together was to happen during the weekend. The meeting came to an end, and we all returned back to work that day. Those that were in the planning committee were assigned to organize the events and also put the necessary things together. It was an all-white party, and all the staff were expected to be on white. White is one of Raymond's favorite colors, and we always dressed in white anytime we had any small gatherings. Raymond gave all of us the day off that day so we could have time to prepare for the day party. We only had 1 day to the event, and so we needed time to put things together. I got home that day feeling tired and exhausted. George. Even though we didn't spend much time at work, it was exhausting for me. I got home that day, rested a bit, and headed to make lunch for my husband and Emmy. After I was done, I had my meal and went upstairs to have a quick nap. A few hours later, I was woken up by Emmy's noise. Anytime he sees my car parked outside, he knows that I'm around. He climbed upstairs to meet me. I never joked with my son. He was my bundle of joy and always knew how to make me happy anytime I'm sad. I met Emmy and played a little before I had him changed into his housewares. I fed him his lunch and he slept off afterwards. Soon after, my husband came back from work. Just like any other day, he was looking so tired. He sure did have a long day at work that day. He came down after a few minutes and had his lunch. When it was evening time, we played some games with Emmy and also had dinner together. A couple of minutes later, we went to bed and rested for that day. 2 days later, it was the day of the party. I woke up that morning and told my husband about the party. He wasn't surprised because he knew it was an annual get-together my company always organized. And so he gave me the go-ahead. After we talked that morning, he told me he was going to hang out with his friend Matthew and also took Emmy along. As soon as they left, I made arrangements for what to wear, the type of bag and shoe that would match the white dress to the event. After a while, I finally came to a conclusion on what to wear. After that, I went downstairs, did some cleaning and washing, and also made something for my husband and Emmy to eat when they got back. During that period, I called Rita so we could go together. She agreed and came down. The party was scheduled to start by 8 p.m. and end at 11 p.m. Rita eventually got to my house at exactly 7:30 p.m. I got out of the house and we drove to the venue. We got out of the car and headed to the entrance. The decorations from outside were elegant, and not just outside, but inside as well decorated. I commended those that did it. They really outdid themselves. On getting inside, I saw my boss, Raymond, and one of the staff conversing at a corner of the hall. Immediately he saw us. He walked towards our side. We said hi to him, and Rita asked to be excused. Raymond and I talked about a few things and also flirted with me. At exactly 8 p.m., Raymond called the attention of everyone in the hall. He talked about a few things and asked us to make a toast for ourselves. Everyone clicked glasses and we had wine. So guys, the party was moving slowly and the atmosphere was nice. I had a lot to drink and also ate a few snacks. Soon after, the music was on and we all danced together. I had a few dances with my colleagues and also with Raymond. Indeed, I had a great time. Just when Raymond and I were dancing, I asked him to come over to a corner because I wanted to show something to him. He got curious and then followed me. At that point, I didn't know what I was thinking about. I can't say I was intoxicated, but I knew what I was doing. Raymond followed me, and just when I could say anything, he grabbed me and kissed me. Yes, guys, he did. We were in that state for like 30 minutes before I pulled out and left his place. At that time, I gained my senses and went home before the party was over. I couldn't wait nor looked for her. I immediately called a cab and went home. Raymond kept calling and texting me on my way home, but I refused to pick nor returned any of those messages. I got home and freshened up and went straight to bed. 2 days later, I decided not to go to work because I didn't want to face Raymond after what had happened between us. I tried reaching out to Rita, but it was going. After trying it for some time, I stopped trying. I was worried and thought about what happened to her lines. It was a Monday morning, and of course, Raymond and Emmy had left home. I was the only one left at home that day. Later that afternoon, my husband came back from work looking so angry and upset. I didn't know what was wrong with him at that time. I was so shocked because I had never seen him that angry before ever since we knew each other, or since when we got married. Before I could understand what was going on, I felt a heavy sound across my face. Leonard gave me a hard slap. I didn't know when hot tears were running down my eyes. At that moment, I managed to ask why he slapped me, and then, guys, Leonard brought out his phone and showed me a video. I looked at it and saw that the video was me and Raymond making out at a corner of the hall. I was surprised and shocked at the same time. I didn't know what to do or tell Leonard. My husband shouted at me and even punched the wall. Leonard punched it in such a way that it left a hole on the wall. I got so scared and ran away from his side. Leonard was very upset and angry. To think that it was my boss that I cheated on him with, Leonard was very angry. My husband pushed me out of the house that day and told me never to come back to his house. Leonard also threw my things out and had the gatekeeper thrown me out of the compound. At that moment, I didn't have anywhere to go. I was stranded and helpless. I couldn't go to my parents because they lived far away from the city my husband and I were in. I called Raymond and explained everything to him, but he said he was upset with me for not picking up his calls and also drew a conclusion to fire me for not deciding to take a day off, even when work had resumed. He blocked my lines and also sent me the sack letter. Everything I had worked for was crashing right in front of me. I cried bitterly for days. Raymond had cut all ties with me and Leonard had sent out from his house. I thought of who I could go stay with for a while. Just then, I remembered an old-time schoolmate and headed to her house. Her name is Joy. Update. So guys, I stayed with Joy for some time before I finally moved. I didn't want to cause any inconveniences for her. My husband filed for a divorce immediately and had it sent to me a few weeks ago. I took time to reminisce on all that had happened in the past few weeks before signing the divorce papers. Leonard has also filed for a restraining order and kept Emmy away from me. But one thing I can't take is for Emmy to address someone else's mom. No, I won't take it and will never allow it. I'm going to fight for the custody of my son with every penny, even if I will go broke after that. After thorough investigations, I got to know the person that videotaped the scene. It happened to be one of my colleagues at work. I was so shocked and surprised and couldn't believe it. Guess who, guys? It was Rita. Yes, guys, Rita was the one that videotaped me at the party. Apparently, I called this person a friend. Well, I thought we were. I never thought she could do such a thing to me. I got to know about it a few days after my husband divorced me. When I got to know that she was the one behind it, I paid her a visit. At first, she wanted to deny it, but then later admitted when she knew I didn't come to play. Rita was shocked that I could get so upset like I did. She apologized for doing what she did and said it was a big mistake. Of course, I didn't buy the cock and bull story, and I sure gave her an angry piece of my mind. Apparently, Rita had always been daydreaming about Ray. She admired him in any opportunity she got. I thought maybe it was a joke, but never knew she had him in mind. I was foolish enough to fall right into her trap. I also got to know a few days ago that Leonard and Rita are now dating and soon to be a couple. I don't think I would be able to get this off my mind. I practically used my hands to destroy all the things I have worked for. And on top of that, a lady whom I called my friend was going to take over everything. I never thought someone who claimed to be my friend could betray me like that. To even think that she helped snuck out of the house on several occasions was something I can't really comprehend. I was indeed foolish to fall for it. Karma got me hard on these guys. I reported Rita, and after much investigation, all evidence pointed that she was guilty, and so Raymond fired her. At least let her face the consequences of her actions. Let her feel the heat of looking for a job for some time. Leonard can have Rita and marry her, but Rita can never have my child. I regret everything and I'm ready to face whatever revenge, but not with my son. I have learnt my lessons, and I guessed I have learnt it the hard way.